Hello everybody, this is Dr. Novak again. Thank you and welcome to my channel. I'm going to have two tanks I'm going to show. One is Gerald's and the other one is Tony's aquarium. I will leave a timestamp below in case you just want to go directly to where the aquariums are and don't want to watch the beginning of this because maybe you know all about it. In this video I'm going to show you that I got some Eheim substrate. And it's a porous substrate. And I'm going to put that at the bottom of the plenum, then put the undergravel filter on top of it, and then my substrate. And I'm going to show you exactly how I do it, hook up the lines, how I'm going to do it. Like I said, everything I'm saying can be applied to very large aquariums. And that's all coming up next. Okay. The first thing we're going to do, here's the tank. This is from Petco tank. It is about 5 3/4 gallons, so it's a little bit bigger than a 5-gallon aquarium actually. I think a 5-gallon aquarium is actually 5.5 gallons. This one's a 5.75 gallons. The filter plate or the undergravel plate I'm using is for a 10-gallon. And so there'll be room around the sides. But that's okay. It's not going to be that much room. Now this is the Eheim substrate. It's a porous substrate. It almost looks like a pumice. Okay, it's not that expensive. I've used it in my other tanks. If you look at older videos, you will see I used the exact same substrate additive. And that substrate, that's what they call it, Eheim substrate. You can get it on Amazon. What I'm going to do is pour some in the tank, and then I have to determine how much of it am I really going to need. Because basically, all I'm doing is making a single layer of it underneath or in the plenum itself. So it still has that void. And now we have this porous material in there that will actually allow, because the water is moving so slowly, to do denitrification. Another thing why I'm doing this is because as water passes through the plenum, no matter what you're using, if you're using sand or what I'm using is kitty litter or stones or whatever, or however you wish to set it up, it's actually not going to be carrying a lot of detritus or dirt particles or anything through it to really get this substrate all dirty. Plus the fact it's going to be away from the light. So it's not going to be subject to algae because no light is going to get in there. Another thing is if you have a glass bottom tank like this one is, if you have a stand where you can see the bottom, you'll be able to see then at the very bottom of what I'm talking about, how things will stay clean. And if you have plants, you may even see roots going down into the plenum itself. That's nothing to be alarmed about. Another thing is you have to think about is this is going to be up for a long time, or basically until you get tired of the aquarium and take it down or have to move it. So we're thinking of not only today, and we're not and maybe a year from now, but it may take as long as 5 or 6 years or 10 or 15 years before you take the aquarium down. Hopefully it will take a while before you ever take the aquarium down to either move it or have to paint the room or whatever it is. But we are looking for aquarium to be stable for years and years to come. That's what we're looking for. And as you see, I'm just trying to screw around here and try to get the right amount of the Eheim substrate to fit underneath the undergravel filter. And there's still going to be plenty of room in that void that's underneath there. And this is something I didn't think of. This was done by another hobbyist, and I thought, that's a great idea that we do this because it's just going to add to the anoxic filtration that will be happening at the very bottom inside that plenum. Okay, and it'll be away from everything else on top. Now, If you were to make a tank like this, what I'm showing you, you could use a screen to divide the substrate. So if you had fish that would dig, they could only dig as far as the screen and then no more. They would not bother the plenum. So no matter what they did, they could, if you have fish to dig, you probably can't put live plants in because they'd probably dig up the live plants. But getting the right amount, here I dumped out the excess, now I have the right amount. The next thing is I'm going to clean it and get it all ready to go. Okay, the tank has been cleaned. The Eheim substrate has been cleaned. I cleaned it in that black basket like I showed you in my other videos previously. So now everything's clean. I have just the right amount of that Eheim substrate. See? And the basket's all been cleaned. And all I now have to do is get it organized, get it in the center, and put the under gravel filter on top of it. And you only see, you're looking at it and saying, well, that's not a lot. You don't need a lot. Basically, it's just a little bit that you're putting at the bottom of the aquarium. You don't want to pack it in there like it's another gravel. And because this is porous, it will be able to grow bacteria on it and create anoxic conditions. It's just a helper. Because remember, what we are trying to achieve here is to have 100% of our biological all in our substrate. So we don't have to add sponges, you don't have to hang on the back filters, you don't have to have anything. Let's say if you want a more natural aquarium and all you want is your plenum running, you can forego everything else, just like in my betta container. I have nothing except the plenum. That's it. No hang on the backs, no power heads, no nothing. And the movement of the bubbles coming up keep the water circulating, and that's more than enough. I think it doesn't need any more. In case you want something where you want to save money and you don't want to buy a hang on the back, or maybe you don't have the money yet. Maybe all you have is the money for what we're doing here today. Fine. You know, at least go this far and then get your tank set up. And that's what we're going to be doing, is getting the tank set up, as you can see. Okay, since I'm using the Lee's Betta under gravel filter, I modified it so I could be using the 1/8 tube instead of the 1-inch one. I put the cap on. They give you this little carbon cap, and I put that on top only because when I put the substrate in, it doesn't accidentally go down the tube and fill up the uplift tube. So this cap is not going to stay on. It can if you want. If you want to know how I did it, I show in a previous video how to make it. It's just a Lee filter. It's called a Betta filter. It's from Lee's, and the plastic's easy to cut, and I just modified it so it would be a small 3/8 tubing instead of a 1-inch tubing. That way you can count, or you can look at the bubbles more carefully on how many is coming up that 3/8 tube. It just makes it easier. Do you have to do it? No. It just, for me, it's worth the time and trouble because it's easier to determine the amount of flow you're going to have. So the first thing I do is that everything is ready to go. Remember, in my last video, I cleaned the kitty litter and that basket. It's in a 5-gallon bucket. Now, first thing I do is add the kitty litter along the sides. And there's about, I'm going to say, with the under gravel plate and the sides, I'm going to say each side has at least a 1/2 inch, maybe a smidgen more of space around the filter. Okay, that's not going to bother anything, that little space. that's not with the Plenum. Plus, it's going to hide the filter plate, so you'll never see it. I mean, for all the years this is going to be set up, you'll never see that filter plate ever. And cosmetically, it will look quite nice. The next thing you want to do is connect up your tubing to the bottom, and this hooks up real nice here. Make sure it's all the way pushed down because you want it to last for years and years. I'm using black tubing, and I use a little suction cup to hold it, and I use a stainless steel U to go over the top. That way you're not sending your tubing over the top, and then it could kink or bend. If you use this, you can buy these off of Amazon. They're not that expensive. They're stainless steel. I've used these before with a lot of aquariums, and the tubing won't get all bent up if you use one. And that's what it looks like. Okay, now we're pretty well done with it. The substrate looks deeper than what it really is because remember, a ½ inch of that is being taken up by the plenum. And we're on the outside where there is no plenum, so it looks deeper than what it is. But there's about 9 inches of height. So that's a good height for plants, driftwood. It gives you the same amount of height as a 20-gallon. Because if you take a 20-gallon aquarium and you put your substrate in it, you're going to have about 9-10 inches of height also. So it gives you as much height as a 20-gallon. But I just wanted to show you, once that cap in the back there on the bubbler is taken away, cosmetically you're not even going to see the bubbler. Once you put stuff in the aquarium, it's not even going to be there. Like I said, I only keep that bubbler cap on, which they give you from Lee's, only because as you put the substrate in, you just want to make sure it doesn't go down that 3/8 hole. Once I remove that, and don't worry that if you remove it, you're thinking, well, maybe a fish or something will go down there. Yeah, but you have a screen down there. Okay, so if a dojo or something else goes down in there because of that screen at the bottom, it's not going to be able to go underneath the filtration or in the plenum at all. Okay, so this is an option. If you want to keep it on, fine, or you can take the cap off. I'll be taking it off so it really won't look unsightly. And that's it. In my next videos, we'll go further, but basically that's it step by step. Remember, if you want to add just a little bit of kitty litter and then add a substrate of your choice, that's perfectly fine. There's no real set rules when it comes to this. And I will show you then what iron I use. Okay, this is the iron that I use, and this will be placed in the aquarium once everything is set up. Okay, and I will show you how much to put in, and then you can judge how much your particular aquarium will need, instead of using laterite. Okay, so now we're going to get into the two aquariums. The aquarium you are looking at is a 75-gallon aquarium. That's a big fish. That's a big parrotfish. I mean, it almost looks like the parrotfish is in a little 20-gallon, doesn't it? But that's a 75-gallon tank. So that's a pretty good sized parrotfish, Gerald's parrotfish. Anyhow, it's he's filtering it with a Fluval FX4. So we know if he's using an FX4, we know it's a pretty good sized tank. This is a 75. That parrot, I don't know. I wish you would have said how big it is, but it looks to be at least 6 inches or more. Tidal 110 hang on the back, and a Lee's under gravel filter. Substrate is a fluorite dark mix with black gravel. See what I was telling you? You can mix your substrates up for your plenum. You know, it's a cocktail. You can make a cocktail, you know, with your substrates. Do what pleases you. If you're going to mix up your substrate with the fluorite substrates that already have iron in it, then you really don't need the flourish iron. But if you're using, like I am, a substrate with 0 iron in it, then you're probably going to want to add some flourish iron in the very beginning. Let's see, nitrates tend to stay in the 20s to 30 parts per million range. I do add both liquid ferts and root tabs. Okay, lighting is 1 Fluval 3.0 on 4-inch risers. And that's Gerald's tank. Yeah, if you're going to use anything with nitrogen in it, root tabs or fertilizers, that is going to bring the nitrates up quite a lot, because you're not only doing that, but you're adding food, which usually has nitrates and phosphates in it. So a lot of people will say, oh, my nitrates aren't going down. Well, how much are you feeding your fish? Are you adding fertilizers? All this has to account in how well the tank is and how it's established, and the anoxic conditions. Are they capable of handling the load you're giving it? Okay? Next tank we're going to look at is another 75-gallon aquarium. This is Tony's aquarium, and it looks like we got a lot of 75s going on here. And okay, his filtration is a Oase Biomaster 350 with a heater. So I often wondered about those filters, if that heater bothers the plastic or makes it brittle over time. If anyone has a comment about it, let me know if that ever seems to be a problem with those particular filters, because someone bitched and complained about the Sun that had a heater in it, and it made the plastic dry out and brittle when they had a heater. I was wondering if the Oase ones are the same way. A BCB bag made from a zipper pouch filled with kitty litter soaked with the Flourish liquid iron. Homemade plenum using egg crates. So in Tony's aquarium, instead of buying something, he made his own out of egg crates. I found out that sometimes just buying the under gravel filter, by the time you get the egg crate and go through all the work, are you really saving money? But then again, if you're a do-it-yourselfer and you like having the fun, getting your hands dirty, hey, then make one out of egg crate. No problem with that. Let's see. Egg crate lifted up with 1/4-inch pieces of cut plexiglass, 3/4 in diameter. I made the lift tube out of a same PEX piping. Let's see, egg crate is covered with landscape fabric. Okay, some people will use landscape fabric. Some people will use screen, like window screening, to put over, and then they will just hot glue spots of the window screen onto the egg crate. You can do it that way also. Landscape fabric would be good if you're going to especially use sand. But if you're not really going to use sand, you can go with window screening. Let's see, there's the, nylon window screening you can buy, or you can buy the stainless steel. Basically, I use myself in my goldfish aquarium in the lanai, I use the nylon, and it works just fine. Okay. Thinking I should have used nylon screen in the hindsight. Okay, so he mentions he was thinking he should have used the screening. Anyway would be good, but a lot of people, if they're not going to use sand, will just go with window screening. Buy a little roll of it and then put it over the top, and then let it go down the sides and just hot glue it. That simple. Egg crate is covered with landscaping fabric. Thinking I should use okay. Substrate is kitty litter soaked in Flourish iron at 4-inch deep. I capped that with existing gravel and aqua soil that was in the tank. Okay, It's a planted community tank. Plants Anubias. Okay. He does mention his Nubius leaves are yellowing with hold, but constant new growth is forming. If it's yellowing, there's two things that could be causing that. Sometimes it could be iron, but sometimes the Anubias doesn't like the light. Okay, and sometimes they'll start yellowing because they don't particularly like the kind of lighting you're giving it. And I've noticed that with Anubias myself. They're sometimes they could do great, but depending on your lighting, sometimes they can turn yellow. And since they are taking all their nutrients out of the water column, you think, well, why is it yellowing, right? It's not really putting roots into the substrate. Well, I found out that that could be a lack of iron in the water column itself, or it could be the lighting. It's not quite liking the lighting that you're giving it. Okay, various crypts he has in there, red tiger lotus bulbs, pathos growing above the tank. Have tried other plants, but I find they waste away. Suspected lighting issues. Okay. Very minimum algae growth on the glass. Okay, lighting, fluval strip light. Don't remember the exact specs. I have suspended on jack chains. Found this help with the algae when I first set up the tank. Water parameters are ammonia 0, nitrite 0. Nitrates are between 10 to 20 parts per million, depending on how often I fertilize. Once again, it's that drastic fertilizer that gets people, for their nitrates and phosphates. pH is 6.8 to 7.0, and iron is 0.1 parts per million. And temperature is 78 degrees. Fish load, guppies, Corydoras, salt and pepper cat, yo-yo loaches, lemon tetra, harlequin, rasporus, mollies, and small plecos. He says he's had minimum issues with the tank since he has set it up. Since he really has converted it over, he says, to a plenum, he has very, very few issues. And he did it early last summer. And I want to thank Tony for doing that. I'm glad he let everybody know. I'm sure the information he's given there to help people out, that he's not having too much of an issue. And that just seems to be the biggest problem I've always run into, is people who say, oh, my nitrates aren't going down. And one of the first questions I have to ask is, are you fertilizing? Did you put fertilizer tablets in? And 99% of the time, or 98% of the time, it's usually yes. And I said, well, you're feeding them, they're causing nitrates, you've added nitrates, and you're trying to now get rid of all these nitrates in the system as you keep compounding to your problem. It's just the nature of the beast. Like the guy from Australia, when I asked him about his nitrates, what would his nitrates be if they weren't 10 to 20 parts per million, using the BCB baskets and everything in his sump? He said, oh, my nitrates would be up to 80 parts per million instead of only 10 or 20 parts per million. He said, because I have a tank set up right now and it's 80 parts per million. And even when I do a water change, it goes right back up to 80 parts per million. So that goes to show you that the system is working, but it's can't handle the big, huge bile load that's being placed on it, but it is handling it. It's trying to bring it down and control what the nitrates are. And that seems to be a big problem with a lot of people, because they do have plants. They keep fertilizing plants that maybe can't utilize the fertilizer that you're putting into the aquarium. They can't utilize it. It's just too much. And, when you go to speak to somebody, whether it's an aquarium store or whatever, they usually tell you, oh, your plants, they need more fertilizer. And maybe they don't need fertilizer. Maybe there's something else. The Liebig minimum law is, if you're lacking one thing in the aquarium, it could affect everything else. So it needs to be in balance. But anyhow, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I will bring out more about the aquarium setup. I will bring up about the lighting, the setup, the aquascaping, the hardscaping of the aquarium. Since I am using the kitty litter, another thing I'm going to have to watch out for, I'll have to test for, and I'll let you know whether the pH is going to go down, like the 6.5, 6.3, or whether it's going to go up. And that's if it goes down, you can solve the problem with a little bit of baking soda to bring it up. If it's up too high, you may have to do some water changes. Like I said, it just depends on the kitty litter or the laterite or the safety zorb or what you're using. Because I hear all kinds of stories. My pH is too low. My pH is too high. It just depends on what brand you're using, where it's going to put your pH at. And until next time, this is Dr. Novak. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll continue on with my build. Like I said, everything in this video, everything's miniature, but it applies to any size aquarium. It's entirely up to you. And I think that's the thing that is good. You can use any substrate you want and turn it into a biological filter that will last you the rest of your life. And you don't have to worry about gravel vacuuming it every week or every month even. Normally, I would never gravel vac my aquariums except maybe once a year, and that's it. If they're planted, I don't even do it because you can't get a gravel vac in there. There's just too many plants, so you can't do anything. But if I can get one in there, I never did except once a year. So that would be almost like saying you have a sponge filter and you would not clean it out except once a year because it's your biological filter. So once a year, you make sure you take out a weekend or whatever you're going to do and clean up the substrate, and that's it. Leave it alone. You're not going to really destroy any of the bacteria. You'll stir it up and it'll go back to normal very quickly. So don't worry about it. It will reestablish itself if you do stir it up with a gravel vac. It will go back and reseed itself very, very quickly because it's already an established aquarium. Okay, so thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, and I will be coming up with follow-ups on everything that I'm doing in case you're following me and buying your supplies. And I'll show you stuff that I bought for the aquarium so you could do it. Until then, happy fish keeping.